Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review by request from my dude Ranger Sly, who recommended this book to me, so I went out and grabbed it. This is Marvel Avengers Across Time, issue number 1. It is written by Paul Levitz, art by Alan Davis, colors by Rachelle Rosenberg, and letters by VC's Cory Petit. Before we get started on the review, please like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell if you're so inclined, if you want to hear more reviews like this one. So a little foreground knowledge on this book. I have no idea what this was. My dude, Ranger Sly, said that he loved the writer, Paul Levitz, and recommended that I read this. So I did, and here we are, and here we go, right? So this book states on the first page that this continues right after the events of the original volume of Avengers number 11. I'm drawing a blank on when Kang first appeared in Avengers, but that's what this is playing off in that issue of Avengers 11. And I think it is Kang's first appearance, but they meet Spider-Man in that book. He's actually featured on the cover, but it is not Spider-Man. It's like a Spider-Man robot that Kang had sent after them. But that's where this book is picking up. It heavily hints that at the beginning. One thing I will note, that the art and the style of writing, everything kind of hints at like an older times, which is kind of nice. It's kind of like reading a book from that era. But basically we are, like, they are coming out of this whirlwind portal that Thor has generated, and they are back in New York from their adventure in Avengers 11. They touch down in New York, and there is some kind of mess that they made, which they quickly help fix, which is like a newsstand and a couple buildings. And then after that, they kind of reminisce about the adventure. And then they all take off. They're like, look, we've been gone too long. Let's and they all, just take off. Thor goes back to Asgard, and, and basically the book is setting up the characters that they're using for the story, and it's the mainline Avengers, and there's some other things to note, that they are using like their OG, costumes and stuff like that. Most notably when you finally do see Iron Man. But basically, Cap is the last one to leave. He is greeted by a bunch of fans, particularly lady fans who want autographs, and he takes off. There is a little callback to Spider-Man in the Daily Bugle, and then we see this character here, which turns out to be Rick Jones. I'm drawing a big blank on who Rick Jones is. I should know, but let me know down below, because he does play a part in this story. So we catch up with the book's antagonist, which I've already kind of mentioned. It's Kang, which I did not know he was going to be in this book. It should be hinted. Avengers Across Time, right? And we're dealing with the time traveling. So basically Kang's talking about his, his failed attempt in Avengers 11, and they kind of show some scenes from that comic, and basically he's saying, he shows you that he has all these different relics, and not just from the Avengers, but multiple different Marvel heroes. He's got the X-Men Blackshot. He's got like Doctor Strange's cloak in a bubble, a really damaged Cap's shield. But basically saying that, with all these relics, all of them were kind of not really anything compared to his power, and he demonstrates so by blasting all of it. Everything gets destroyed except for one artifact that's in the rubble, and it turns out it's Hulk's beating green heart is the one thing that could withstand the power of Kang. And so what does Kang do? He builds like a Hulk robot out of that Hulk heart, and he sends it after the Avengers. There's a conversation right here between Ant-Man and Wasp. And basically, when they were touching back down in New York, Janet Van Dyne, she kind of made she was flirting with Thor, and she was being playful, but they're at this point they're supposed to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and Ant-Man he kind of took offense to it. After that, they get a call on the radio right here, basically calling out to all Avengers, and of course it's the Hulk rampaging in New York. One by one, the Avengers show up, and of course they are all beat down by the Hulk. Not too many of the Avengers, strength-wise, can go toe-to-toe. But they do show that many of the Avengers, do attempt to, you know, quiet and calm the Hulk, try and bring him down. They're not really trying to fight him because he is an Avenger himself. Um, but basically, at this point, it's just the couple of Avengers, or the first ones that show up are Ant-Man, Wasp, and then Captain America. And they do a good attempt at trying to slow him down, but it's not really until Thor shows up. And once Thor shows up, he's in this book. He's at this time, he's the one Avenger that's known to be able to go one-on-one with Hulk. But even within the first couple punches within this battle, Hulk kind of takes out Thor pretty easily. It takes him out with the building. And Thor reverts to his Donald Blake persona. At that time, that's when Rick Jones kind of pops up, and he's explaining that this isn't the Hulk, that something's wrong. Hulk does recognize the boy, and that's what kind of leads him to that this isn't the right Hulk, because the way the Hulk recognizes him. And it does give a call back to Avengers 8 when Hulk met Rick Jones. Right here, we do finally get to see that this is like a Hulk robot, because the book kind of paints it as the Hulk. But it's kind of obvious that it's a Hulk robot, right from the moment that Kang picks up that thing and he says what he says. But it is kind of the first time we get to see this weird looking face that the Hulk produces to show Rick that he is a robot. After that, Iron Man shows up in his classic OG Iron suit, which I thought was pretty dope, and he goes toe to toe with Hulk, and he does pretty much the most, I wouldn't say damage, but he kind of keeps Hulk occupied the most. They have a scene where Wasp is looking for Thor. She doesn't realize he's reverted back to his Donald Blake persona, and she thinks he's just a regular person, and she ends up getting the cops to help out Thor instead of her helping out Thor. She ends up flying away. We do see that eventually the Iron Man can't really go toe to toe with Hulk, and what he does is use his intelligence. He brings him to ice and figures the ice will kind of mess up his traction and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool because the Iron Man has rollerblades or roller skates in his Iron Man suit, and he uses the roller skates to kind of fly around him on the ice, which in reality doesn't work. You can't get roller skates on ice. Yeah. But anyways, so we catch back up and we have Wasp, and she's trying to track down all the other Avengers that are there. She does find at this time Giant Man, Ant-Man, and she kisses him awake. They start to run back to the battle, and that's when they're called over by Rick, and he's kind of explaining that this is a Hulk robot. And at this time, instead of trying to fight him, it's that time when they're like, hey, we need to use our intelligence. And they start asking Rick if he knows anything about the Hulk, and he tells them that he's powered by the gamma radiation. If they can take away his ability to keep gaining radiation from the Earth, then it will kind of temporarily slow him down or stop him. And that's the plan. Basically, after that, we see that the Hulk is getting tired of playing with Iron Man. He just smashes the ice into ice water. At this time, we see Cap coming back, trying to get his attention, and he does. They lure him into the subway with one of the coolest homages ever, because as they're going into the subway, Hulk is kind of doing his rampaging thing, and he's destroying it as he goes. And we see Cap kind of break over, and he ends up trying to save this older lady, who turns out to be Aunt May, and she's actually drawn in the older style of Aunt May that a lot of us are used to, which I thought was really cool. And she's asking for Peter. She's like, hey, has anybody seen my nephew Peter? If he was here, he'd be saving me. And Cap's like, well, I'll be your substitute, let's go. So we catch back over to all the other Avengers and Hulk, and at this time we see kind of something cool, but Iron Man is trying to use a magnet to use all the metal that's in the subway to entangle up the Hulk. And we even see on his right here, he's got little magnets that pop out of his little suit, which I thought was funny. But of course this only keeps him tied up for a second. and get him down to the subway, and the Hulk thinks it's because it's dark or whatever. They end up shocking him with the 700,000 volts that are tied to the subway of New York or whatever. Of course, that does nothing, and Hulk just laughs it off. And they just continue to go further into the subway with Hulk's like, haha, I'm gonna get you, you know, and he's playing this like kind of tag kind of game where they're running a little bit. He's chasing, running. Eventually, he kind of just stops talking, and in the next panel, he falls over. And it's exactly as they planned. The gamma radiation, they'd gone down deep enough in the subway where the gamma radiation was cut off, and he wasn't being like psychically powered by the gamma radiation, and the robot ceased to work or whatever. At that time, there's a lot of things that go on, but basically, Iron Man blasts his chest open. They do see the heart, which they're all freaked out about, that it's actually Hulk's heart. Ant-Man claims that he can do a post-mortem like autopsy on him. Before that even happens, Thor shows up and blasts the body of the Hulk and says that that's never going to happen. And basically like that, the Avengers kind of stand there and they're just kind of weirded out. But they do state that they are going to take the fight to Kang himself. And Kang's just sitting here amused, saying that if they want to bring the fight to him, that he's more than, had enough time to plan, centuries worth of planning. And then it just says next. Now there's 2 pages at the end of this, and one, it gives you like a brief explanation on Avengers number 11, like a synopsis of what went down. Of course, that being a very, very pricey book from volume 1 of the Avengers. And the second page is the next up on Avengers Across Time. And I'll give you a little read through. And it says, the Avengers evade the Baxter building, break the barrier between worlds. Willie Lunken unleashes a dangerous menace. Can Thor lose Mjolnir? Come check it out. And that's where this book leaves off. My final thoughts is I loved it. It was kind of simple, but a lot of those stories from that time were. I will say I enjoyed that we're getting Kang. I should have known that from the title, but I thought that was dope. And I thought it was kind of cool that it's going to be an ongoing series, at least a small mini-series or something like that. I was kind of afraid it was a one-shot, which, isn't bad either. But it was actually a really good read. I wouldn't say it was like super amazing or anything like that, but as far as it being a first issue, what they gave us, the size, the quality, it was fantastic. As a high recommendation. But hey, that's my review. That's what I got for you. I'll keep it at that. It is Friday. There's a bunch of shows going on, so go watch them. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Matt!